Alright, so you're going to go to in Photoshop, you're going to open up your Photoshop Pics folder. Yeah.
She got cute eyes.
Ah, go. And then, hold on, let me get there. Photoshop Pics folder. And then the healing brush tool. And then you're opening up Sharia. Okay? The very first thing we want to do on Sharia is make a copy of the background layer. So you can either drag it down to this little piece of paper, or you can right click and duplicate layer. So now we've got a copy of her, okay? Alright. Go ahead and zoom in just a bit to maybe like the bridge of her forehead. How about that? Right in here. She has a few imperfections.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We're going to grab the healing brush tool. It's the one that looks like a band-aid. It's in the middle section. Right click on it and make sure that you've got the healing brush tool and not the spot healing brush tool. Alright. The first thing we're going to cover up is this little zit right here. So what you want to do is make sure that your brush size is just big enough to cover it up. So I'm going to go down just a little bit, maybe to 13. Alright. Now you're going to go right beside it. Hold down the Alt key and then click one time with your mouse and let go of the Alt key. Now you're going to move your mouse over the blemish and then click one time and it will cover it up. Okay?
Okay, can you repeat that?
Yes, so we're going to go, here's another blemish right here. I'm going to go beside it so that it'll be as close to the skin tone as possible. You have to hold down Alt and click to copy that skin tone, to copy that piece of skin. Then you let go of Alt and move over that piece of skin and click. Alright, you don't want her to look like a whole different person. You just want to cover up any zits. You probably don't want to cover up a whole lot of freckles because then people will be like, hey, I thought you had a freckle on your nose.
Oh, I covered up the freckle.
Alright, so under her eye, there's a whole lot of...
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to cover all those up or she's going to look real splotchy. Alright, so you're going to just get the biggest ones. You're going to go right beside it and then go over the top of it. Just the biggest ones. You can go beside or underneath it to grab that skin tone.
Yeah, I got this under control.
Okay. So you don't want her to look like a polka dotted face, so you only do just a few.
Yes, she's beautiful. You gotta do all that with all the...
No, you're just going to do the biggest ones, not all of them.
Okay, I'm trying. Best I can.
Let's see if she's got any other big zits or anything.
All right.
I'm not going to get rid of this mole because it's part of her face.
Please.
I might want to fix that eyebrow she's got out of place. Okay. Okay, now you can click on the eyeball beside background copy to see the before and after. It's probably not huge differences, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, now we're going to make a copy of this background copy. So right click, duplicate layer. Okay, now we've got two. This new layer, we're going to work on her eyes. And why don't you zoom in just a little bit to one of her eyes. About right here is good. We're going to be using the Dodge tool. Let me explain to you what the Dodge tool is. It's at the very bottom of the middle section of the toolbar. It looks like a pen, kind of. If you don't see it, it's probably underneath another tool. It could be underneath the burn tool or the sponge tool. The Dodge, burn, and sponge are all on that little button.
So which one we choose?
Dodge. The Dodge tool. Okay.
All right.
Now, on the Dodge tool, all of these things up here have changed now. We want to change the highlights. So where it says range, make sure you have highlights selected,
All right.
not shadows.
What the range is for?
So the highlights, what Dodge does is it's going to lighten something.
Oh.
So if you choose shadows, it's going to make everything that was dark light. And you don't want that to happen because people have dark specks in their eyes. But we want the highlights to get even lighter. So click on the highlights. You're going to change the exposure down a good bit, maybe down to like 30% or so. And then you want the brush size to be probably in the 20s. Maybe even less, like closer to 24, 25. Okay, watch me do it and I'll show you what we're doing. We're just going to go over her, is that an iris, I think? You just go over it a little bit. Okay, look at the before and after. Before, after.
Okay, so I just...
You don't want to do it too much or she'll look like a snake. So just do it a little bit and then go to the next eye and do the same thing. You're just going to go over it. Make sure that the exposure is down closer to the 20s. It's just going to make her eyes pop out.
Do you have it? What do you have it on 20?
I have it on 29, I think, the exposure. So now when I look at the before and after, it should just make her eyes look a lot better, okay? Now that we've done the eyes, the pupils, or irises. Okay, she's got kind of dark circles under her eyes. So we're going to use the dodge tool again, but watch because we're going to change a lot of the settings. Alright, first setting, we want it to be this brush, this really fuzzy brush, so that it's not, it'll make streaks on her face if it's not. The size can be a bit bigger, maybe like 40 something. Alright, then you want to change the range to shadows. Here's why. She has shadows under her eyes. We want the darker parts to get lighter, but we want the exposure to go down to like 15 or so. And you want to go over it just gradually under her eyes a few times. If you go too much, she starts to look gray under her eyes. So just do it a few times and then look at the before and after and see how it looks before you do any more.
Okay.
Let me see. You'll be amazed at the before and after. Do it on both eyes, but not too much.
On the same layer, right?
Yeah.
Oh, not she look like a snack.
Alright.
Don't you say shit look exposure too?
Okay, let's make another copy of this layer. So we're on the top layer, background copy 2. Right click, duplicate layer. Now what we're going to do is we're going to blur her skin a little bit. So watch how we do that. You're going to grab the Lasso Tool, which is the third selection tool down. It's on the same tool as the polygonal and the magnetic. Okay. Alright, now watch me do this. I'm just going to grab some of her forehead. Yes. Alright. Go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, now we're going to go to Select and Refine Edge. And now you can see your selection. So let's feather it a good bit. Oh no, you can feather it between 30 and 40 would be good. And then hit OK.
Between what?
30 and 40. Then you're going to go to Filter. Go down to Blur. Go to Gaussian Blur. And you don't want to blur too much because then you'll be able to tell that she's just got a blurred forehead. But maybe somewhere between 1 and 3. Maybe 2 point something. Okay. To get rid of a selection, you know you do Control D to deselect. And now we're going to select maybe like right under her eyes. Well, it helps your skin tone. So we go to Select, Refine Edge, feather it. If you get so feathered that it includes parts of her eyes, that's too much. Too much, too much, too much. Okay, and then you go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and then hit OK. Control D to deselect. You can look at the before and after and see if you can tell the difference. It should kind of even out her skin tone a bit.
What about
Go ahead and do
how much we put on the Gaussian blur, whatever?
somewhere between like maybe 2 and 3.
Okay. So if I... Wait a minute. Oh well, but it.
And then you just don't want to get any lines. Like if you get this line between her nose and her face, and it blurs that line, then she's just gonna look like she doesn't have a nose. I mean, it just like, you know.
Okay, let me see how it looks on yours. Like,
The before and after. Okay, ready?
go.
Before, after. Can you see the difference?
Yep. I can see.
It's just very subtle differences because we're going to do some other stuff to even out her skin tone in just a second. So you just want it to be subtle. Okay, now we're going to saturate her lips just a little more. So I'll just stay on this same layer. Really, if you were doing this professionally, you'd make another layer for each change, but we'll be alright. Okay,
So you can make many changes in just one layer, right?
you can, but you want to it's good practice to make a new layer for each one. Alright, right click on the layer, the tool that's got the dodge tool, and go down to the sponge tool. The sponge tool will saturate or desaturate a certain area. So we're going to work on her lips a little bit. On the mode, you want to change that to saturate instead of desaturate. And on the flow, you want to change it way down. We'll start with like 10 or 11%. If you do too much, it'll be really obvious. Well, I probably did too much there. I'm going to Alt-Control-Z.
What is the Control C?
I undid. Okay. I'm going to change the flow down even more. Okay. Alright, let's see. Before and after. It's not a huge difference.
Yeah, that's not a huge difference,
But
but
you don't
still.
want it to look... You're not adding lipstick. You're just making her lips stand out just a little more. Okay, that's good for that. To do this. Ready? You're going to add a blank layer. Not make a copy of another layer, just create a blank layer.
Blank layer. Alright.
And then you're going to sample a piece of her skin. So to do that, you're going to click on the eyedropper tool. And then you're going to click, let's say, somewhere on her forehead. So let's do her forehead first.
Okay,
If you click on her forehead, it's going to change your foreground color to that piece of skin you just clicked on. Then you're going to click on your paintbrush. Make sure that it's the fuzzy one. You can kind of make it a little bigger. And you're just going to paint her skin. Completely paint her skin.
Okay, let's go.
Hold on.
The whole skin.
Paint just like her forehead. Okay, then you're going to sample another piece of skin. Let's say right here. And you'll just keep painting. I guess if you know how to contour, then you would... I think this part is actually supposed to be lighter. Yep.
We gotta keep changing the color.
Yeah, keep sampling her skin to get the right color for the right thing. Alright, and paint her skin. Whoops, I got over her eyeball. If you get over her eyeball, remember you're on a blank layer, so you can just hit the eraser and... Whoops. I probably need to do a better job with that. Alright, keep painting over her face, and I'll show you what to do. Okay, after you have it painted all in, if you do contouring or whatever, if you just want to even out her skin tone, you're going to be on this layer 1, and you need to gauge and blur that. So you're going to go to Filter, Blur, Gauge and Blur. And we want to increase the blur just so that it'll kind of blend in together. I don't know, we can play around with how much, but I'm just going to do mine. I'm going to. Okay. After you do that,
What do you use to?
I did mine to like 9 something, but you can do it whatever. After you do that, oh, I'm almost out of time, so I gotta hurry up. You're gonna decrease the opacity of this layer all the way to 0, and then gradually increase it just a little bit,
Just to see.
just to see the point at which it starts to look unnatural. So
Right there.
Either this board.
35.
yeah, okay, so when you look at the before and after, you should see just a slight improvement in skin tone. Okay, I've only got 15 seconds left, so you're going to make a folder. Then you're going to click this first layer, select all of them except for background copy, drag it up on top of the folder. That way you can see the before and after.
Everything
Before,
we put it inside
after.
the folder.